We are fed the idea that we should be ourselves and that anyone who loves you shouldn't want you to change. Hollywood movies sell us on the idea that love should always be unconditional, and changing who you are for a relationship is part of a toxic cycle. In this video, I'm going to answer the question, should you change for a relationship? When our partner tells us that they're not happy with our behavior, we struggle with how to process it. We think we should be loved for who we are, but we can also think that our partner won't love us unless we change. Well, because we battle these two extreme thoughts, we can overcompensate, kind of like a pendulum swinging back and forth. And usually, this overcompensation falls into one of two different modes. So we can start in people pleaser mode, and then we can go into obstinate mode, and we can swing back and forth between the two. So let's break these two modes down. So people pleaser mode is when you become very, very needy. You overcompensate. Because you want to avoid any conflict, you kind of say yes to everything, and you put aside any of your own needs or ideas. And you often make a lot of promises without really thinking about them. We can also make a lot of very shallow surface level changes in order to try to please our partner. And because of this, we can get quite resentful and start to blame our partner when we don't get the reaction that we want. And this is because this people pleaser mode is very extrinsically motivated. This is changing to get something, a reaction from your partner, or to do what you think is right for the relationship, but it's not coming from inside. So there's quite a low internal motivation to do this. And because of this, this reduces your partner's trust in you because they can feel that you don't want to do it and you're just doing it to get something. So this means that their trust in you and the relationship starts to drop. And then when we see that doesn't work, we can swing over to obstinate mode. Because we've put in all of these changes and this effort and it's not getting the reaction that we want, we flip to the other side. We start to become obstinate, which is refusing to change our behavior or our decisions or our perspective, even when there's compelling evidence to do that. So again, this is an overcompensation. This is where we swing too far to the other side and we basically refuse to make any changes. We dig our heels in, and then we start to blame our partner for expressing their feelings when they're unhappy or they would like changes to be made. We start to blame them. And from this, we start to play victim. We start to become a victim of somebody else, and this makes us dig our heels in even more. And again, this is extrinsically motivated. This is refusing to change because somebody else told you to, or because you feel like you've already changed enough and you refuse to change anymore. This reduces your partner's trust in you and the relationship because you're doing it spitefully. You're doing it because of somebody else's opinion. So we can ping pong back and forth in this cycle from one extreme to another, because ultimately our partner doesn't feel satisfied with our responses either way. So we can get into a mode of, well, what do you want? How do I even make you happy? And people pleaser mode and obstinate mode are extrinsically motivated. So this is changing or not changing because of an external influence. And any changes that we do make, they don't stick because we're not actually motivated to change internally. So for example, imagine you set out to make a business that makes $1 million. If you have this $1 million figure in your head, then you don't really care what your business does to get there. So you start to sell shoes and your customers don't like them, so you get demotivated. You try selling cars, which does better, but it's not enough, so you get demotivated. And then you try painting houses, which you don't have an interest in, but you're doing it to make money. And because you're extrinsically motivated, you're motivated by the figure itself, you end up roller coastering back and forth because you keep looking at this $1 million figure and seeing that you're not hitting it because you're not getting the outcome that you're aiming for. And this means that your motivation tanks because you feel like you're failing over and over and over again. However, let's say you create a business for the sake of creating a great business, the intrinsic value of creating a business, doing something that you're passionate about. Your motivation is going to stick even through the tough times, because you're making it for the sake of making it. You're keeping your focus on the process of growing, tweaking, and improving, listening to customers, taking their feedback into account, figuring out how to incorporate it into what you're doing. And what happens from that is that the money starts to come as a result of you creating and growing and improving your product. And this works the same with relationships. If you focus your attention on growing and do it for the sake of growing, then it will have an impact on your relationship. If you develop your skills and do it for the value of doing it, even through the tough times, then you'll still be developing your relationship skills, regardless of the outcome of the relationship. And as a side note, if you want deeper dives on what relationship skills to develop, then make sure you do subscribe for new videos every single week. So because of this, your own growth has the biggest impact on a relationship. Cast your mind to a time when, let's say you've had a toxic boss who left or was fired and was replaced by someone new. think about how much that impacted the work environment. How even though everything else was technically the same, suddenly things just became easier. It became easier to talk about problems, it became easier to figure out solutions, and the opposite way around is true too. This is how much of an impact you have on the relationships around you. The more you develop your relationship skills, the more you cultivate a strong environment for your relationship to grow. The more that you show that you are capable of change and changing for the right reasons, not simply to get someone back or to get a reaction, the more trust that you will build within the relationship, and the better the relationship will become. So how do we grow intrinsically? Before we jump in, if you want a deeper dive on these tools, then make sure you sign up to the free bootcamp, which I'll link to in the description down below. Well, the first step is to cultivate self-awareness. Reflect regularly on how you show up, what you bring to a relationship, and where you can work to grow those weak spots. This includes emotional management, communication skills, developing solutions, and how to show up as a better team member. Understanding all of these will help you in every single type of relationship, not just romantic relationships. The next thing is to set goals. Once you've started cultivating that self-awareness about yourself, start setting goals that align with who you want to be, rather than goals that are solely aimed at external rewards or recognition. The goals that are aligned with who you want to become are more likely to succeed, because you'll sustain your motivation and your satisfaction as well. Next, make sure you are actually taking action. It can be very easy to sit and watch a YouTube video or a course or a program and not actually do anything with it. But the most impactful learning comes from actually taking action, actually applying your knowledge and practicing your knowledge in order to build up that skill set. So it's really important to take action. Next, focus on mastering your growth. This is working to increase the challenge in what you do and grow your skills to allow you to progress in actually mastering them. Relationship skills are the most crucial skill that you can have, especially in an age of AI, when AI is taking over a lot of other skill sets. The one skill set that it can't take over is your relationship skills, your communication skills, and your soft skills. Mastering these skills not only improves your ability, but it also enhances the intrinsic motivation. So celebrating your own success instead of comparing yourself to others or doing it simply to get some sort of outcome. And make sure that you're engaging in self-reflection. Self-reflection on how you've been doing helps to understand your progress and learn from your experiences and start to make adjustments, again, that align with your intrinsic goals. Looking back on your practices, looking back on your skill building, and seeing where you can tweak, where you can improve, and where you can grow. And because of doing that, that will then start to cultivate your self-awareness. And if you notice, none of these are about getting some sort of result from external. This is all about intrinsically growing for the sake of growing. As a result of focusing on growth, your relationship will grow. And if you want a deeper dive into the 4 relationship skills that you need to learn, then I'll leave you with this video right here.